Well, happy March 11th to y'all, folks. Wanted to first get out the easy stuff first. Um, Starting off with the weather. Uh, if you are in this area here, and let me show you this line here, and we have Gulf moisture coming up this way. All right, and I'm right here. I'm actually located right here. Okay, and yeah, we're gonna get some rain. We might get a little snow overnight. However, this is going to spell some pretty nasty situations for areas, uh, excuse me, for areas this way eastward. Okay, you're talking about some real heavy snow, heavy snow. You'll get 8 to 12 inches, and it's not the light fluffy kind. Okay, it'll be the heavy wet stuff. We're talking roof collapses, really hard to clear the roads and keep them clear. So just a heads up here on the weather that's headed your way for the East Coast, Central America. Yeah, you'll get some of the rain here. We had a 70-degree day yesterday right here. Okay, and today it's in the 40s. So yeah, we got quite a storm brewing here. You can see the Gulf moisture that's popping off here in Louisiana too. It's going to feed this whole storm, and it'll be an arc storm going all the way across here, spreading your way east. So just be really prepared for that in your daily plans here in the next couple of days for the East Coast. Now there will be a lot of wind with that too. Just FYI, blowing around those power lines. And so also go out here to the earthquake map. Now, what I do have it set on is all magnitudes worldwide for the last 7 days. Okay, and go ahead and minimize my settings here for you. And I wanted you to go ahead and take note of where the majority of the earthquakes are occurring worldwide. Okay, yeah, we're getting around here in the Ring of Fire. Yeah, we have a little bit here on the west coast here, as you can see. Okay. Now, why this doesn't show that here and here? It's probably because it's all on the same map in the way that I'm zoomed. So, if you zoom in a little bit more here, you can see we are getting swarmed with earthquakes, folks. We're getting now. This is not the natural way of things, okay? Uh, but we are getting a spillover effect from west to east. Okay, and we can tell by the activity of the pressure down here, pressure that's all up and down this fault line here, runs straight up here, all the way up, and all in here. Okay, and we know what facilities right up here is hard too. And but as you can see, swarms and swarms of earthquakes. Okay, and not in very good places. So just keep in mind with that. Uh, Now, with that being said, let's see, what else was I going to bring up here? Out here before it's news, okay? Everybody goes out before it's news. I want you to go ahead and just take a look at some of the headlines that are trending and take a very close look at what's going on with this Malaysian flight. Now, maybe I'm not into leaving a bunch of links, all right, because you guys know where these sites are at, and any videos that I view that I like, I make sure they get under my liked folder there, so it's publicly viewable, so you're able to find what videos I'm talking about there. And so if you're really that interested, you'll go to that playlist of mine, the liked one, and search for those videos. The ones that I've watched the last few days are very telling. One is that I had an opportunity to listen to a gentleman, and comes from one of my subscribers and one that I'm subscribed to as well. He works in the Air Force. He is a commissioned officer. He works for the radar net that's up there in Alaska, and for anything that comes out from the Pacific and specifically the Bering Strait. Now, that officer went on to state that there have been several, and I mean like 7 to a dozen or more in the last week, of incursions of our flight patterns above 40,000 feet, of planes that are not squawking. That means they're not communicating what type of aircraft that they are. And they have no tail numbers, and they are not flying with commercial traffic. That means with the right air currents to maximize fuel efficiencies, things of that nature. And these have been big aircraft, unmarked, flying up through Alaska, down through Canada, and making it into the Midwest. All right. Like I said, they've been staying above 40,000 feet, and so they are not necessarily intercepted, because above 40,000 feet, even if it's above my own house, they consider that international airspace. In other words, with the right permissions, anybody can fly over anybody. That's basically the way that we treat it, with the exception of some nations like China's been balking about that. Of course, North Korea, Iran. But the general rule is above 40,000 feet, you're not going to get questioned too much. And however, we've been having a number of these planes. A number of block planes. Everything's blocked on their identification, and you know, uh, coming in through Alaska, down to Canada, and into the Midwest, testing our airspace. Now, uh, remember how this whole scheme needs to be set up for the right political equation to be fulfilled. If there is ulterior motives with this Malaysian airliner full of 240 souls, 239 souls. Um, some of them are questionable, but I can tell you what, most of them are rich Chinese. Now, North Korea and China, they have their own relations. They don't really like each other, but China plays off North Korea, and North Korea likes to get free stuff from China. The one thing that I'm worried about is with this plane, can be sent with North Korea nuclear technology. It's a heavy lift aircraft. It's a Boeing 777. It has a range of 7,000 miles plus. We got the incursion of the airspace from Alaska out of Asia and down through the Canada and into the Midwest. And this plane has the ability to go over the Arctic, okay, with a 7,000 plus mile range. I think it's 7,700 miles, something like that. Google it, okay? Google us Boeing 777, and you'll see that its capacity is greater than any ICBM of what its capabilities are doing. Because ICBMs, they just go up into space. You can track them, you can blow them out of the air. They're ancient technology. Uh, but are you really going to down a plane full of rich Chinese folk? Some of them probably have, relations within the government. Most probably do, because that's the way you get favored there in China and make the money. And that plane was full of those people. And if that plane was headed our way with a North Korean nuclear bomb on board, and the Chinese can say, well, hey, you don't even know if it's going to go off or not. So what's going to keep that plane from reaching its destination? What is going to keep that plane until they find it and it is confirmed it is that plane? And then I don't care if they find the black boxes. I want to find the tail number. I want to find everything. I want the parts off that 777 with the serial numbers tying the engines to that particular plane. I don't want to just find a bunch of parts out there in the ocean and say that's the flight. I'm not going to buy it, because you could go out there and toss a bunch of parts out there. I mean, we all know what happened during 9/11 and what had to take place during 9/11, when we know about Cheney having to shoot down that plane that we say we downed because we're heroes, right? All right, and we're looking at another situation much like that. 9/11 could have been another test run. Remember what would happen if they were able to nuke a city, EMP us in any way. That plane is able to do the altitudes necessary for a viable uh, EMP strike. So it doesn't even have to be a full nuclear strike. And then with the debris, you find North Korean technology in there. You have Iranians that we know are on board. We know the Iranians have been working with North Korea on a plan with their nuclear technology and their missile technology, their delivery systems. And we know that they haven't really been having a lot of success with that, because their nukes are too darn big and heavy to stick on the end of those rockets. Rockets are actually not that good of technology unless it's small, see. um, and targeted, the accurate stuff. So I'm just really concerned that, and I'm looking at what's up here on Reports News, okay, a bunch of BS. We even got reports of the plane actually disintegrating, vaporized in midair, So is it aliens? I even heard aliens, okay. Here's one, red alert, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 for 9/11 style attack, okay. And literally minutes after the second Crimean War plot was exposed by truther.org, all right, the Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 inexplicably disappeared from radar screens while flying. And that's one way of easily of doing that, folks, is just turning off the transponder and the beacon, okay? So, and then flying at different altitudes that you're not going to be questioned. Like I said, if you get above 40,000 feet, and it's not necessarily down, it could be up. So they really got you all confused out there. Like I said, Paul Begley's even out there saying, oh, the plane was vaporized. Now we got these people making cell phone calls, and the call's not going to voicemail, and people assuming a lot from that. All that is BS, okay? Those phones have to go through so many networks. It could ring 3 times, 4 times, 5 times before it gets to the voicemail. I don't care what the condition of the phone is, okay? And I don't care if you're right next door. That signal might have to go 50, 60 miles away before it goes back so you can talk 2 blocks away. So I'm not buying this, whole thing about the cell phones ringing. It's just a matter of people trying to delay the information stream so that plane could reach its target. It's all about the plane reaching its target. And are we going to be weak and not shoot this plane down? Is Obama going to be weak? Or hey, it plays into him. If we get hit like this, martial law, he stays dictator. All the whole political system here melts down. We have our debt. Then China comes in, Russia comes in, and divides us up. They hold our treasuries. That's when we're talking about economic sanctions. They hold our treasuries. Those treasuries are bills of sale on real estate in our company or country, in companies, not just you're thinking about the mortgage on your home. Think about what you owe in your business and who you owe it to. Those people could come in and say, pay me now or I take your business. I take your warehouses. I take your railroads. I take your national parks. See, it's a legal bill of sale. The rest of the world will recognize this. So if you go against me, you're going to have not only me to deal with, but the rest of the world. You borrowed the money, pay us back. I don't believe I owe them a cent. So, and I don't. I have, I've done a few microloans. It's not because I have AAA credit, but I buy things on cash. I don't have mortgages, but own properties. Okay. Because I don't want to be in debt to no man, especially the bankers. You need to avoid them bankers because they're all tied into it. And I tell you, if this happens, it still is an inside job because I'm giving you the details right now. And like I said, I'm not going to be satisfied. Oh, they found the plane broken up over a deep part of the jungle of Vietnam or something like that. I'm not going to buy that either. Like I said, tie those parts, all right, from cradle to grave to that plane. I mean, serial numbers and everything. We got to make sure that they didn't just dump parts out there and they're going to use this 777 as a weapon of mass destruction. It's all about getting it to its target. Okay? That's what they're worried about. They can launch missiles at us all day long, and we have missile shields. We can defend against ICBMs, all this stuff. We got directed energy weapons we're using against each other. Some have better than others. All right, we have the best. And why am I worried about this? Because if this happens, folks, our military will unleash a storm of hell on the rest of the earth that they'll never forget. And I'm worried about the loss of life there. Here in America, we can withstand a loss of the city and deal, we'll suffer more politically and than anything. To the Shiite storm that will be coming their way, especially when you get foreign countries and showing up with their troops, stating that these are our assets, just like Russia went into Crimea, totally independent part of Ukraine, and said these are our assets. They're sinking ships, setting up shop. All right, making sure that nobody can come in and contest what they are saying about Crimea and getting a foothold into the Ukraine to eventually take all of Ukraine, and they will succeed. This will embolden Russia and eventually lead to them wanting to invade the Middle East along with China. Because where will be America, folks? So, yeah, that's why I'm screencasting this up. Just had a lot on my mind. I like to think through a lot of what's going on. I just don't like to go out and jump on every bandwagon that's out there, all right? Ukrainians claim Russia pushing north of Crimea. You see what I'm saying? I know this is Fox News, guys, but uh, time to pull out the big gun. A new big gun being issued to U.S. Army troops will be the game changer for the American warfighter, according to the manufacturer. A Swedish-built recoilless rifle so powerful it could take out a tank from a mile away. Really? Is that what you're going to be forced to do if you're put back into the military? You're no longer going to have your fancy Apache helicopters that can take them out miles away. You're going to have to be forced on the ground and lugging one of these guys around. Really, I mean, talk about a big step backwards. Are we going back to cannons and bayonets? You know, plane made a U-turn. Malaysia probes report that the lost jet headed west. Really? I think it went into a place where it could load a bunch of North Korea technology onto it and send it our way. Sure, there's smaller nuclear warheads out there that are made by us or Russia or China or Iran even has a little bit of technology there that could be slapped together and done some different way. No, they want the North Koreans to take the blame, so they have to have North Korean technology in the aftermath, tracing of the plutonium, etc., from their past tests. Uh, to blame the North Koreans. All right, China would love to see us in a scuffle with North Korea. They'd love to see it. Okay, and meanwhile they'll pour all their Chinese in to fight against us there. That's what happened last time we were there. We weren't fighting the North Koreans or the Koreans. We were fighting the Chinese. And a lot of you guys out there are old enough to know things like this about where our wars came from and where they're going. What's going on in the Pacific, our history with Russia. All right. A lot of you guys were just little tykes out there when 9/11 happened. Yeah. So you guys don't even understand how it was an inside job, okay, done by our country and others, all right, to set us up for the New World Order, the Patriot Act, things of that nature. And, but this old Malaysian flight, I hope it's found. I hope I'm totally wrong. Uh, but with these air incursions that we're experiencing from the north, it's telltale that they are trying to attempt to get one of these aircraft, these long-range aircraft, into our airspace. Okay, they know they can't do it with missiles. Remember, China already tried to launch a few missiles off our west coast a few years ago. And we'll go ahead and show you the radar again. That's where it's setting up. I'm over here at Dutch Census site. He's got a conglomerate of tools that I like to utilize, so you can see where all this action is going. And so just be aware that we got a winter storm headed your way for the eastern half of the United States. This is ground central, folks, where I live, for weather modification. Check out my previous video to this. You'll understand. In space weather, pretty moderate M flares popping off. Will we get an X flare? Who knows? We had a 3.9 M4, so that's a pretty good strength. But this is some pretty good flaring energy. Our shields are handling it quite well. The protons, remain a little bit elevated from these last couple of shocks that we have, but it seems like everything's being handled well. Everything seems to be calm. Density is fine. Temperature is low. Speed is just fine. So space weather is all good out there. So enjoy the warmer spring airs and airflows that are coming your way, but we still got winter out there, folks. All right. I know some people had 60, 70-degree days yesterday, but like I just showed you, you got one huge storm coming your way, folks. All right, this is going to really cover part of the eastern United States with a lot of severe weather. So just be attentive there. And sorry for the 20-minute video, but I just really found it real necessary to explain what's going on militarily with the wars and rumors of wars. You know, I'm not one of those people that are calling for the apocalypse, because we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I didn't see Jesus come back then either. Not, I love Jesus. He's my savior. He's my buddy. But a lot of people like to use doom and gloom to describe God's return. Now, Jesus Christ is coming back with power and great glory. People will see him. You won't hear it from a YouTuber. And I think that the great terrible day of the Lord will be a day of darkness and all this. Yeah, it'll be terrible. Why? Because I believe that we're going to turn the world into that. And that's why he'll have to come back. And that gloominess, that terribleness is what we're bringing upon ourselves. Okay. And, you know, God disciplines those that he loves, but his wrath is coming. All right. And so a lot of the stuff that you read in the Bible about God's wrath, well, a lot of it's brought upon us by ourselves. So, you know, take a good listen to what I talked about with weather modification in my last video about separating us from God, you know, putting stuff up there in the atmosphere that is metallic in nature. I think is another layer of something in between us and God in the heavens. And that shouldn't be being done. You know, we do have already clouds in the sky. We have what God makes. So that I'll take, but I'm not going to stand for the wills of men to determine who gets rain and who doesn't, who gets water and who doesn't. You know, yeah, I can make a dam and create a pond. But this is something totally different. The motives, the intents of it, totally different. But a lot going on now. And but like I said, I tend to sit upon these and let it mull through, play out a little bit, not jump upon that bandwagon. And because most of it is spin, okay? Because who's reporting the news? You're hearing it from somebody else. And you have to have discernment out there to know what is spin and what is not spin. So I hope that you have your spiritual goggles on and staying sharp out there, folks. You know, it's really needed. And you guys, you 40 tards out there, thought you guys could skate through life. You guys have got to get with it. You know, and I'm preaching to myself before I'm preaching to you. I'm you know, 44 years old. All right, and I know that my spiritual life has not been the greatest. I tell you what, you know, if it wasn't for the grace of Jesus, I'd be the one in the deepest, darkest part of hell. And if it wasn't for the grace of God, I'd be there already. And I just thank him so much for giving me this opportunity to choose him and to be part of his family. You know, to be called one of his children. So I love him very much, and he loves you all very much. So if you're finding yourself under stress today, you know, call out to him, and he is faithful and just. He'll hear you. He'll comfort you. He'll be with you always. But I'm not one of those date setters. You got all these people out there talking about the end of the world. Well, you know, the Muslims believe it's the end of the world too. Who's right? You know, is there Mahdi? Is there? They're the ones that are right, or you know? I just say live every day for the Lord. To live as Christ and to die as gain, and the Lord's going to take care of the rest. So anyway, guys, I hope this video finds you good. Take care. God bless you.